I want to ask you what insight you have into why these people seem to be working out so well so far as serving with the president. And the first is the chief of staff, Susie Wiles. She, of course, worked on the campaigns, but they've had some rough moments. As you said, most people have some rough moments with the president, just the nature of the beast. But what can you say about why the two of them seem to work so well together?
Well, look, I think, and I know this, he respects Susie immensely. She's an incredibly gifted political operative. She's done an amazing job as the chief of staff. In full disclosure, I helped Susie come to the campaign in 2016. I brought her with me to Israel when we did the Netanyahu race back in 2020. I've known her and her family for a long time, and she has been an incredible operative, not just in Florida, but now across the country. But what Susie has done is she has the ability, in a very calming way, to keep the chaos, which is every White House, out of the general public. And Susie has a way of impressing upon her will to other people to not take these fights. And you know, every White House has their internal fights, whether you see them or not is different. But she's kept them very quiet. She's done an excellent job of keeping the warring factions at bay and not spilling this out into the national media story. And I really think that's her best talent, her best gift, is impressing upon people. If you have a disagreement with somebody, and those disagreements take place because there are many factions inside the White House, let's not air that dirty laundry in public. Let's keep it private and let's deal with it privately. I think the president has really benefited from that strategy, and it's very different than the first term.
I think that's spectacular and spot on analysis of why she's effective. And the piece of it that may be surprising to some is that the president likes it. Some people have said he likes chaos. He likes, putting two advisors and scorpions in a bottle and watching them fight. But he seems to like the fact that Susie Wiles has kept the conflict either to a minimum or behind the scenes. So is Donald Trump changed his attitude about watching the staff fight as for sport, or that was always overstated?
Look, I think the president is someone who likes to see individuals argue very vigorously on their positions. And we've seen that many, many times. The difference this time is those arguments, those conversations, those dialogues stay within the Oval Office. That's because of the leadership of Chief Wiles. What she has done is she's taken those warring factions, regardless of what the issue is, and she said, listen, we can have disagreements internally, but let's not have them externally. So I think Donald Trump really appreciates that. The other thing that Susie has done a very good job of is she's never become the story. Okay, many times the chief of staff wants to become the story. They want to be that principal spokesperson. They want to be out front in the media. She has really shied away from doing that. I think that's given her a pass with some of the attacks that probably could have been leveled against her. She's very comfortable with who she is, where she is in her career right now. She's very comfortable with her relationship with the president and that of the cabinet members. And she's also done a very, very good job, Mark, and I've seen this firsthand, of not micromanaging. She's let those cabinet secretaries run their respective departments without the oversight that some other chiefs of staff have tried to impress upon them, and that has been a recipe for success.
Folks, let me tell you, I have an advanced degree, not a PhD, but a master's in Susie Wiles studies. And I will tell you, that is the best explanation of her success I've heard anywhere. So whether you're watching us on YouTube or listening on a podcast, if you weren't listening closely, if you were playing Wordle or maybe changing a diaper during Corey's explanation, rewind right now, because you will not hear a better explanation. Bravo, Corey. That was great. Scott Bessent didn't serve in the first term, wasn't really a Trump supporter, and has risen to remarkable prominence in influence over economic policy, over the tariffs, over dealing with Capitol Hill. What do you know about the story of how Scott Bessent worked his way into the president's life and has such trust and confidence?
So I've known Scott a long time. For your viewers who don't know, he was very successful on Wall Street, ran a company called Key Square. And then when the kind of financial, when COVID hit, he moved down to South Carolina. And he's got two kids that he and his husband have adopted and said, listen, we can do better. Scott is been a stalwart of strong America First policies from the financial side. And he has been just a phenomenal spokesman for this administration. Scott started coming to Mar-a-Lago to brief the president probably in 2021 after President Trump was out of office. And they started to develop a rapport. And Scott is so good on television. He's so calm. He's so smart. And listen, Scott has a pedigree that puts him with the very best and the brightest in the financial world, whether it's the Milkens of the world or any of those people that have been the luminaries in the financial markets over the years. Scott has been incredibly successful in his own right from a financial financial side, from an economic side, and then he's gone out and advocated for the president's policy. So because of that, there was, as you know, Mark, a very, very strong debate of who would become the Secretary of the Treasury. Two cabinet members both wanted it very much, Howard Lutnick and Scott Bessent. Scott ended up obviously getting that position. I think he's done a phenomenal job, and he's so good on television. He's so calm on television. He's so smart on television that I think the president has respected that. I know today the president announced that Scott will not be the next Fed chair. The president made that announcement today. I understand it, but Scott is continuing to drive this economy in a very strong fashion with the full support of the president.
Just to clarify, you said you'd known him a long time. Have you known him before he started going to Mar-a-Lago in 21?
I did. I met Scott in the first Trump administration. A guy by the name of Steve Bannon. Maybe some of your listeners have knew of him. He said to me, "Hey, Corey, there's this guy up in New York. His name is Scott Bessent. Would you ever go meet him?" And we went up and we had a cup of coffee. And then all of a sudden, Scott just said to me, "Hey, could I call you every now and then if I had a question?" This was probably in 2017. And I said, "Sure." And he said, "Corey, you seem to know more things about what goes on in the White House, even though you don't work there, than most other people that do. Would it be okay if we keep talking?" So for probably now 8 or 9 years, I've known Scott. And the truth is, after Trump left the White House in 2020, I was doing my business at a large financial institution, and they decided to debank me because they didn't like my politics. And so I called Scott. I said, "Hey, Scott, would you ever think about helping me find another banking institution?" He did that back in 2021. And so we've remained very close. And I'll tell you what, for your viewers who don't know, Scott gives the best Christmas gifts. He has these cookies that he sends out from a South Carolina bakery that my kids just die for. That's the favorite thing that we get every year as a Christmas gift here at our home. And so I'm very grateful for Scott and his family for sending that.
Are they in a giant decorative tin?
They are beautiful. Yes, they are. Scott's very rich, so I appreciate the beautiful tin.
Yeah. I did not know you knew him that long, but I do know about his relationship with Steve Bannon. It's one of the most undercovered stories in Trump world. The fact that those two guys are so simpatico, and you wouldn't necessarily think it, but of course Steve has deep Wall Street ties too. He's turned those in for his populist rage. Marco Rubio, little Marco, is now not only the Secretary of State and National Security Advisor, but a very close aide to the president. So tell us that story. How did Marco Rubio go from little Marco to one of the president's top advisors?
Well, I will say this. I think unequivocally Marco, and I mean this with no disrespect to anybody else in the cabinet, may be the unsung hero, the best of the best right now. And that's a hard bar to climb because you've got so many great people in that cabinet. But he's just done a phenomenal job. I don't know if he can do any other jobs, whether he's been the archivist, the national security advisor, the Secretary of State, or so many other things that the president trusts him with. Being a U.S. Senator and stepping out of that role from the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee into this role, where, when you're a U.S. Senator, you may have, in his case, tens of millions of bosses, and it's all been truncated down to one boss. Senator Rubio, now Secretary of State Rubio, has done such a phenomenal job. He has instilled confidence with his relationship with the president. The president trusts him implicitly. I have been in the Oval Office many, many times of this administration where I have seen Secretary Rubio in there giving the president an update on what's going on around the world. And Marco was a very talented debater. We saw what he did to others on that debate stage. I think the president respected the fact that then Senator Rubio ran for president, did well in Iowa, third place, but has gone on to understand that President Trump's agenda for America is the right one, and Marco Rubio is the one in the cabinet, amongst many, who's really stepped forward and made that incredible transition from being a U.S. Senator to being a cabinet member.
Think about this. What if you could delay your next 2 mortgage payments? That's right. Imagine putting those 2 payments in your pocket and finally getting a little breathing room. It's possible when you call the good folks at American Financing today. If you're feeling stretched by those everyday expenses, the cost of groceries, of gas, the bills piling up, you are not alone. Most Americans are putting these expenses on credit cards, and there does not seem to be any way out once you start that. American Financing, though, can show you how to use your home's equity to pay off your debt. You need to call American Financing today before you get to the point where you can't make those payments. Their salary-based mortgage consultants are helping homeowners just like you restructure their loans and consolidate debt, all without any upfront fees. And their customers are saving an average, get this, of $800 a month. That's like a $10,000 a year raise. It's fast, it's simple, and it could save your budget this summer. So call now before it's too late. 866-886-2026. Again, that's 866-886-2026. Or you can visit americanfinancing.net/next.